What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And UFC 302 took place just a couple days ago, and coming out of that event, Islam Makhachev called out Leon Edwards, or called out to fight for the welterweight title, and everyone kind of said, nah, like, not time for that, little buddy. You got to defend your title against Arman Tsarukyan. And we all kind of agree that Arman Tsarukyan is the number one guy up to fight for the belt, and people are kind of making their predictions or considering that fight and thinking, there's openings for Arman and he could definitely win that fight. So that's kind of the discussion coming out of 302 is who does beat Islam Makhachev. Now, I've got three people here. I've got three individuals that I believe would have the best chance of beating Islam Makhachev that are kind of reasonable fights that might occur in the future. So obviously Arman Tsarukyan is number one, Leon Edwards is number two, and then I've gone with the champion below with Ilia Topuria as the number three guy that I think has a good chance of beating Islam Makhachev. And we're going to talk about in today's video how I think Islam would go with each of those three and what a fight between them would look like. So yeah, let's get into it. Now, the first matchup to talk about is Arman Tsarukyan, given that that is probably what will happen next, 95% sure, unless like an injury happens or they try and do something crazy. I do believe that Arman Tsarukyan is the guy up next to fight for the belt, and I do think Islam Makhachev beats him pretty comfortably. Now, I know some people are going to disagree with that take. Some people are going to be like, watch the first fight, man. It was really close. And I'm like, yeah, it was close, but it was more like Arman made it that Islam couldn't like dominate him and completely smoke him. But Arman didn't do much to actually win that fight. He just kind of defended takedowns. And I know that might sound kind of dumb, and it's a real simple way of putting it. But in my opinion, the way that these two match up, Arman's got a better chance of not getting finished than like a Charles Oliveira. He's got a better chance of not getting finished than a Dustin Poirier or a Justin Gaethje or one of these guys. But in my opinion, the way that these two match up, while he has a better chance of not getting finished, he has a worse chance of actually winning the fight overall. And the reason I say that is because guys like Oliveira, guys like Gaethje, guys like Poirier, even though they could beat, even though they get finished by Islam, or they could get finished by Islam, they also really have the capability to maybe KO Islam or submit Islam in Oliveira's case, or win a fight across the distance in case of like Volkanovski. Like, that's a way that he can win. And I don't know, me personally, I just don't see that way to win with Arman. I think the way that they match up stylistically is he can defend some of the takedowns. He can defend some of the grappling positions. He can maybe take Islam down or maybe push him up against the fence and do some good work in the grappling. But where does Arman win? Like, if you're picking Arman in this fight against Makhachev, I'm genuinely curious what you want to do, because I do think Islam is a better striker. We've seen him outstrike Oliveira, outstrike Volkanovski, outstrike Dustin Poirier. And so I just don't know how we can say that Arman is going to outstrike Islam cleanly. I mean, he could have some success and he might not get knocked out. But so this could be a fight that goes decision 5 rounds. But even in the grappling, like, I don't think he subs Islam. Arman's not a guy that subs him. I don't think Arman is going to take down and hold down Islam for 5 rounds. So it's just a case of like, how does he win? What does Arman Tsarukyan do to Islam Makhachev that would win the fight? He can do a lot to make the fight closer and not lose the fight, like flat out get like finished or get smoked. Like with Charles Oliveira, he has to fight like a fucking berserker and just chuck shit everywhere and hope to KO Islam or catch him in a submission. He's got the finishing potential. I just don't think Arman does. I don't think Arman's going to flash KO Islam Makhachev like he did to Beneil Dariush. I don't think Arman Tsarukyan is going to throw up a fucking triangle and sub Islam from the bottom or something. Like, I don't think Arman's going to guillotine Islam Makhachev. He doesn't have that same threatening submission potential. And is he going to like take him down and hold him there? Probably not. Is he going to stick at range and outstrike him at range? Probably not. Is he going to get in the pocket and have the success like Dustin Poirier did? Probably not. So I don't believe this matchup allows for like extended success for Arman. I think he can we'll just see rounds where it'll be closer. And I think what I do see happening in this fight is if it doesn't get finished, and I wouldn't mind Islam to get a finish, but I do think this would be a decision win for Makhachev. What I think would happen is, even if, because remember, Arman did get taken down by Gamrot a bit. Like, Arman did have a very close and competitive fight with Gamrot. In my opinion, Again, very simplified way of putting it, but I think Islam Makhachev is just a way better version of Gamrot. I don't think Gamrot does anything better than Makhachev, except maybe like explode people's knees with telekinesis. But yeah, I don't, and we saw Arman have a razor close fight with Gamrot. It went to Gamrot on the scorecards. I think we disagree with that decision. I definitely do, but still, you can't ignore the fact that like you're having a razor close fight with Gamrot. I don't think you're gonna do better with Islam. Like, I don't think that translates to like, oh yeah, he's gonna beat Islam over 5 rounds. And Arman's just not a guy that we see get finishes either. So my personal opinion, Islam Makhachev would win 50-45 decision and win every round. And I think he would win via probably not taking down Arman too much, because I think Arman would be well prepared with the takedown defense. I think he would stuff some of the takedowns. I'm stuttering like Curtis Blades. But in my opinion, it would just end up on the feet. I also think Islam can do better and damage Arman in the clinch with knees and elbows, given that Arman is a shorter guy. And he's not quite as short as Volk, but this will be the shortest guy that he's really fought in his career, apart from Volk from memory, in terms of recent fights. He's fought guys like Oliveira and Poirier, compared to now like Volk, who he was able to land those kicks on. So I think kicks are going to be a big thing for Makhachev against Arman Tsarukyan. I think he can land a lot of kicks. He can go body, he can go up high with him as well, and maybe catch Arman with a head kick if Arman's not careful. Because I'm pretty sure Arman's like 5'7", Volk was like 5'6", I just burped. So yeah, I think this style of matchup and the size of Arman also allows opportunities for Islam to get in the clinch and land knees like he did against Volk. And even against Poirier, who is taller, who's a similar size to Islam height-wise, he was still able to damage Poirier in the clinch with knees and rock him, or not rock him, but land some fucking flush knees. So I think he can do that to Arman. I think he can have the advantage. You see how strong he looked in the tie clinch against Volk. In both of their fights, he kind of just gets there and like holds you and you can't fucking move. And he slams elbows, slams knees into your body, and that'll hurt Arman too. Now, look, I respect Arman a lot, and I think he can make it the distance. And I said, it's not one of those fights that presents a lot of opportunities for Islam to get the finishes like he does have the potential to get finishes against like Volkanovski or against Charles Oliveira. And in my opinion, even if though it was on short notice, if you're going to be able to finish Volkanovski inside a round, I think you've got a solid chance of finishing Arman too. So I think Islam would win by 50-45 decision, if not like a TKO with strikes on the feet, is also something I could see happening. But I do believe that this would be the easiest out of the 3 matchups that I have proposed in terms of easiest fight for Arman to win, because what you need for Islam to win, because in my opinion, to beat Islam, you need someone with better striking than him that also can defend the grappling. You don't want to approach it with like, here's a guy who doesn't have as good striking as you, but can defend the grappling. Like, we don't care about defending the grappling if you can't do fuck all on the feet. So we need a good striker to beat Islam Makhachev, and Leon Edwards is a very good striker, so I'm going to talk about that fight now. Now, the Leon Edwards matchup, I think, goes very differently, because I believe Leon Edwards could win a decision against Islam Makhachev, and I actually would pick him to win a decision, maybe 48-47 or 49-46 against Makhachev. And the reason I say that is because his grappling defense is getting better and better every fight. He's showing more and more takedown defense, better and better takedown defense, better cage work. His clinch game is very underrated. He lands a lot of knees in the clinch, a lot of elbows. That's somewhere where he can actually rival Makhachev, where most guys are not able to do really anything in the clinch. And also, the frame of Leon, I think he would be taller than Islam, I'm pretty sure, is not going to allow Islam to like grab his head and pull him down as easily and like have that advantage to just slam knees to the face because of the shorter height of his opponent. Leon Edwards would be taller. He's not going to let that happen. He stays pretty upright in the clinch and he lands good knees of his own. So yeah, that is my opinion there with Leon Edwards. I think, and striking-wise, it is interesting because the output of Leon Edwards is something that could cost him in this fight, because even if this is a pure striking match, and I do believe Leon Edwards is a better technical striker than Islam Makhachev, we know, as Lucas Tracy likes to say, the lighter weight class skill, the smaller man skill, could play an advantage for Makhachev. He might be a better striker than Leon. I don't think so. Just watching them two strike, I do believe Leon is the more polished striker. I think he's got more weapons too. Actually, maybe not more weapons. Like, he's got good kicks. He's got great leg kicks too. That's something that we know Volkanovski had a lot of success with low kicks against Islam Makhachev. So I think Leon could do a very similar thing. He's got good knees. He's got good elbows. He's got high kicks too. He can threaten Makhachev with a lot of weapons, which guys like Poirier, who was pretty much boxing with him and having a lot of success. I would say obviously Poirier is a better pure boxer than Leon Edwards. But at range, Leon does a really good job of keeping you at range and just fighting his fight, fighting that like range striking match. It might not be the most entertaining thing. I'm not here to tell you Leon Edwards is a fucking barn burner, scrap fighter. He's not. But I think his style does match up pretty well with Islam. Now look, it's about, do you think Islam has a better chance of taking Leon Edwards down than Kamaru Usman? That's kind of where you're looking at. Who do you think has better wrestling and better takedowns? Islam Makhachev or Kamaru Usman? In my opinion, it's Kamaru Usman. That's up for debate. I'm not 100% set on that. I'm not going to tell you there's no way that Islam's got better takedowns than Usman. And I think most of that stems from the physical strength and size of Usman. Now, I know Islam is an incredibly strong guy, but in some of these fights, he doesn't always look that strong. Volkanovski in that first fight said he's not that strong. Poirier was able to shuck off a lot of his takedowns, and Dustin Poirier has not ever been a guy that's known to have takedown defense, and he was able to have a lot of success in the grappling with Islam. Obviously not offensive grappling, but defensive grappling. He stuffed a lot of takedowns. He got back up from a lot of takedowns. He but he like swept and got out of positions back to his feet. So I do think Leon Edwards would be able to do that. The difference between Usman and Islam Makhachev is that Usman is not really a guy to take you back and work jiu-jitsu and go for submission. So that is something Leon would have to be a lot more aware of. That's something he would have to take a lot more care of in terms of not giving up his back like he does a lot. But if the only way, like, because Leon, he does a really good job of getting back up straight away too. He doesn't really settle. Like in the second fight against Usman at altitude, he kind of settled a little bit. It wasn't great for him. He kind of let himself get bullied. But if he just kind of says, fuck you, I'm not getting held down, I'm just getting up straight away. Anytime he gets taken down, it's like, it's to his butt, and then he fucking scoots back up to the fence, stands back up. Or he only gets taken down to his knees. He gets his feet under him. Even if he knows he's getting taken down, he makes sure gets his feet under him, lands on his knees, and then powers up from there. So I think that's something he could do against Makhachev. And if he doesn't give up his back, it's trouble for him. I think he could easily defend the chokes, but that's probably going to be a round gone if he does give up his back. So when I say that I believe Leon would win 3 rounds to 2 or maybe 4 rounds to 1, I do think the rounds that Islam win are going to be maybe Leon makes a mistake in the grappling, maybe he gives up his back, gets controlled. But on the feet, also in the clinch, I think it's relatively even, and normally Islam's a guy who's able to just kind of bully people in the clinch. He ain't going to be able to do that here. I think Leon could be able to turn him around back against the cage, not let himself get taken down from the clinch. And we've seen even Leon took down Usman from the clincher. He could even surprise Makhachev. And we saw when Volk took down Makhachev right at the end of the 5th. I know it was a very tired Islam, but if you push grappling against Makhachev and end up on top of him, these guys' get-ups are not as good as their top control. Obviously, they can definitely get up, and their takedown defense is pretty good for the most part. But if you take him down, they don't spend much time on bottom getting up. And I know that it's kind of a retarded statement to say, because obviously they're grappling against each other, and when they are grappling, they're trying to get back up. But I think, I don't know, maybe something about the vibe of it seems like their top control is just way better than their ground, like their bottom game. Like, I don't think they're not shooting up subs. Like, we didn't see Islam get back up against Volk in the 5th. Maybe that's because he's fully gassed. But yeah, this is not me saying Leon's going to out-wrestle Islam, but like, he took down Colby, took down Usman. He could push it too. Like, he could try and like send some stuff back Islam's way, make him think about some other stuff too. But on the feet, I think Leon does enough to keep it at range and not let Islam land his best shots, because Makhachev, for the most part, is a counter striker. Most of his success is counter striking against Oliveira. Every time you heard him when he dropped him in that fight, that was counter striking. Volkanovski, when he dropped him in that fight, when he rocked him a couple times, that was in the first fight, obviously, counter striking. The head kick, obviously, it's not really counter striking, but even against Poirier, we're landing big combinations off the counter. And Leon Edwards is not a guy that overextends on punches and gives you opportunities to counter. Leon Edwards is a guy that if you're going to beat him, you kind of got to push forward and get in his face and kind of close the space and not let him throw. And I don't think that's Islam Makhachev's style of striking. So I believe Leon could keep him at range on the feet, land the leg kicks, land the body kicks, keep him away. If they get in the clinch, land knees and elbows, kind of mitigate Islam's clinch game, kind of even that out, cancel that out sort of. And in the grappling, I think he might get taken down a couple times. But Islam, we've seen, is not the same, like, once you're down, you're cooked for the whole round, you're not getting up, like Khabib was. We've seen that. So I do believe that Leon Edwards would do enough across 5 rounds to get 3 rounds, maybe 4, maybe we see a 49-46 scorecard in there. But I would pick Leon Edwards by decision. But now let's talk about one other fight, just in case the champion from the featherweight division moves up. Obviously, we saw it with Volkanovski, but now if the guy that just beat Volkanovski decides to move up and Islam is still the champion, let's talk about how that fight goes. Now, Ilia Topuria, I actually think he has a lot of opportunities to have success against Islam, and I think this would look like a kind of hybrid of the Volkanovski and Poirier fights. Obviously, in the fact that his defensive holes are definitely open. That sounds like a fucking weird statement to say. Talking about his holes being open, pause. But you know, there's holes in his defense that that obviously Islam took against Volkanovski with those head kicks, with the slamming body kicks against that style. That's something I think he could have a lot of success against Ilia with. But I think Ilia's got cleaner, crisper boxing than both Volkanovski and Dustin Poirier. Maybe a hot take, but I do believe that Ilia Topuria has the best boxing in the UFC right now. I think he's got the crispest, I think I said the same word twice there, like body shots, and mixes up combos the best as well. And I do think if anyone's going to catch Islam Makhachev with like punches and put him down or rock him, like we saw that style that people are talking about, how maybe Poirier could catch Islam if he overextends on a shot like Adriano Martins did. I think Ilia Topuria is a guy that could do that. That's my opinion. I'm not saying he would definitely KO Makhachev, but I think his boxing combinations are slick, and we see when this guy fucking lets 3 or 4 punches go, only one of them has to land, and it's really hard to fucking defend all of them. Not many people are just slipping punches off this guy. Volkanovski, like, wasn't the best defensively, like, wasn't the most defensively minded fighter in that fight. Like, he did kind of let himself, he had his chin up, he backed up a little bit with his chin up, but but Ilia just not overextends, he extends the combinations, and then that last one lands, and it's you're cooked. So I think he could do that against Makhachev. We haven't seen people really push offensive wrestling against him. Bryce Mitchell did at the end of the first, and Bryce Mitchell took him down, but Ilia said he kind of let Bryce Mitchell take him down because he knew he'd already banked the round and he wanted to make Bryce Mitchell expend some energy. So if that's what happened, I'll believe him, sure, because I just don't think Bryce Mitchell's that good. So I think if you're any good, you should stop Bryce Mitchell's takedown. So I'm going to assume that he was allowing Bryce to take him down to expend some energy. But in the grappling is where the interest lies in terms of, like, would he be able to stuff takedowns? We don't know how good Ilia's grappling defense is. He's got submissions on his record. He's like grappled people offensively in some of his fights. But we don't see this guy really grapple for extended periods of time. You know, he subbed Bryce Mitchell, but we've seen his top game. How's his bottom game go? Again, pause. But like, how does he do when someone tries to take him down? Because I wanted Volkanovski to wrestle him, and Volk didn't. So that's where it's interesting, and I probably would pick Makhachev just because we don't know how good Ilia's takedown defense is, and I think that boxing style of Ilia is going to leave him more open to getting taken down. And also I think he's not as physically strong as Volkanovski, maybe, because I think people talk about how strong Volk is all the time. I don't think Ilia is quite that strong. I think he's explosive and he's powerful, but I don't think his actual physical strength in the grappling would be the same as Volk. So maybe he gets taken down, maybe his get-ups aren't as good as Volk, maybe he's not as good with the jiu-jitsu, maybe he is, I'm not sure. But in terms of just the striking, I think Ilia and Islam would be a really cool fight to watch, and I actually think it would be more favouring Ilia than the Poirier fight did, because I think the angle of which shots come at, I think he would be able to perhaps catch Islam with those shots in the pocket. He can rip body shots easily. He's kind of, also being smaller does help in some of those grappling scenarios. When you're up close in the clinch, you can kind of get yourself out of there easier. There's not as much of you to grab, if that makes sense. I'm kind of yapping here, I'm kind of waffling, but I do think Ilia could have a lot of success against Islam Makhachev. And these double champ fights, I'm not a fan of them. And by no means am I saying that Ilia should be fighting Makhachev next or anytime soon. He obviously needs to defend his belt like at least 3 times. But if this fight does happen somehow down the line, it would be very interesting. Same with O'Malley versus Ilia. Undeserving for O'Malley, but it would be a cool fight. Islam against Leon. Undeserving right now, would be a cool fight. Leon against Dricus would be kind of interesting. Dricus against Pereira. That would just be funny. Pereira against Jones or Aspinall. Again, all of these are cool fights, but we got to remember champ fights are something that need to be spared and not just chucked around like 5 times a year, otherwise they just become meaningless. So, that is my opinion. I would probably pick Islam Makhachev. I would need to see how good Ilia's defensive grappling holds up, because pretty much we only see this guy in striking fights. So I would probably lean Islam, but I do think Ilia would have a really good chance of KOing Islam on the feet, because his boxing is way crisper and he's got way more power than Volkanovski, who was landing a bit on Islam. And even Poirier, I don't know, maybe the powers of... I actually think Ilia, because I think Ilia's like punching placement, and also I don't actually think Poirier's boxing looked that good in that fight. The thing I was impressed by with his grappling defense. I wasn't that impressed by his boxing. Like, I knew in a pure boxing... I expected him to easily outbox Islam in a pure boxing match. But his boxing didn't look crazy good. So I actually think Ilia's got the more precise striking, and he's also got that power. So I think he could knock out Islam if he lands on that chin, if he could make Islam overextend on a shot. Obviously, big ifs. But again, it's a competitive fight. It's an interesting one to talk about. But that is going to be the video done, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments, who do you think has the best chance of beating Islam Makhachev? How would you pick a fight between him versus Arman, him versus Leon, and then him versus Ilia? I know there's some other guys I haven't talked about, like a potential Gamrot fight. I think Islam wins comfortably. I think he would beat Max Holloway, probably subs him on the ground. But these are the 3 that I'm interested in. These are the 3 that if you could say, like, you only get to watch 3 Islam Makhachev fights, and then he's retired, I say Arman next, defends against Ilia coming up, even though that would be undeserving, and then he goes and fights Leon. Or whichever order those happen in. Obviously, Arman first, and then Leon Ilia could be whichever order. But those are the 3. If you could say you only get to watch 3 more Makhachev fights, I would pick those 3 guys. So that's my opinion. Let me know yours in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Follow my Instagram, Left Lane MMA. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.